see if you can go a little bit more.
2, 1. Hello, everyone. It's Mxiety. This is your talk show called A Safe Point. The idea is that it is safe to talk about everything and anything here, and especially mental health. We have on one of our wonderful mental health professionals, Dr. Actually, oh no, I didn't do the thing where before the interview I asked you how to properly pronounce your name. So watch me hopefully not butcher it too bad, but it's Dr. Ksera Dyette?
Dyette.
Dyette! Yeah, so close.
Yes.
Dr. Dyette. So close,
Yes.
so close. But thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you, and I appreciate the time you're taking with us.
Thanks for having me. And I love all the birthday love you were getting.
It's a lot. It's tomorrow. It's tomorrow. So they're being silly and way too preemptive, but it's very nice. I don't mean it to be ungrateful, but it's very nice. But back to you. How did this end up being about me? This is about you and putting a spotlight on you and all your amazing, awesome sauce work. Like I love what you do. We bonded over a love of Final Fantasy, Kingdom Hearts. Like,
yes,
things are gonna be great. This is gonna be a good episode, fam. I promise. Okay, so yeah, I guess let's start. If you could tell us about yourself, let's go down that route. Tell us about yourself.
Yeah, sure. So I'll give you sort of all of the label soup.
Sure.
Clearly.
Yes, love those. Yep.
Yeah, so for folks who are watching, listening, my name is Dr. Ksera Dyette. Obviously, I wasn't born with a doctor attached to my name, but now I attach it all of the time.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. And I'm a Black West Indian immigrant. I'm located in the United States, and I identify as a queer, cisgender, neurodivergent female gamer. And I'm a lifespan psychologist, which just basically means that I work with children as young as 5 all the way up through adults. And so that's kind of who I am, where I'm located, and all that good stuff.
Awesome. Well, you have a lot in common with us. So I guess I love asking this question, which is, how did you get into doing what you do? Like what got you into it?
Yeah, so I was thinking about how I used to answer this question.
Okay.
So like in the beginning, when I was like a baby therapist, I would talk about how I would watch like crime shows with my mom. She's big into like true crime and court TV and things like that. And I got obsessed with just understanding people's behavior and their motivations for doing things. And I think the question that like 14-year-old me had was, maybe under the right circumstances, we might all do things that are potentially questionable or what have you, depending on what's going on in our lives.
Right.
And so I've come to understand that as really being more connected to my interest in social justice. So what are the ways that society deprives us of things that we may need that may cause us to make decisions that aren't the best or may impact our mental health? And I thought I was going to go into law enforcement for a while, but then that really wasn't up my alley. And when I discovered psychology, I was like, oh, this is the thing for me.
This is it.
It was like a marriage of everything I was interested in. And I have my own practice, which I started in 2019. And I also work in the carceral system. So I work in a court clinic with youth who are passing through the system, who often have different things that are impacting their lives negatively.
Mm-hmm.
And that allows me to really intersect that social justice piece with understanding kind of what has happened in people's lives to have them end up where they are and to help support them better. So that's kind of the short version of the journey, but definitely interested in helping the most people possible in the most effective ways.
That's amazing. And maybe this is this is not a trick question, but maybe like a little bit of left field. But like, I also was always curious about like what makes people do mean things as much as what motivates people to like, go to a place that isn't, probably not where they thought they would end up and all that. Like that and how social injustice has a big play in all of that. Like that's interesting to me. But I always was fascinated by like, why are people mean? Like why do, why?
Why'd you make that choice?
Why Right, because not everybody. People would argue that like you don't make that choice consciously, but just the same, like there's something happening right in the back end that's like maybe making you. It's not a. I don't know that it's a question for you. I think it's just in general, like why are people? Let's answer. It's kind of like what is the purpose of the universe?
Yeah. No, I mean, I think like how we would talk about that is pretty nuanced, right? Like
Yeah.
only a fairly small subset of the population are actually like, oh, maybe this is a little bit questionable, right? But most of the folks that I see have had a lot of trauma, a lot of different things happen to them. And that's not in any way to be like, oh, this means that what you did was okay, right?
Right.
But it's very rarely the case that I'm working with folks and they haven't had pretty significant things happen in their lives that helps us to sort of better understand how they got where they are. So
yeah, everybody has that story before they
yeah.
come in, before they walk in. But yeah, so specifically, so you talked about the fact that like you love gamers, you're into gaming yourself. I have ADHD, depression, anxiety. So to disclose to start, are your earrings elf earrings from Lord? Yes. Okay.
Yes, they are.
I can't remember the name of the leaf. It's
The elven.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody
I think it's the
help.
elven leaf.
Is it just an elven leaf? Is that
Yeah,
all
I
it
think
is?
so. Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
obsessed with your earrings. My point was, I'm obsessed with your earrings, and I had to tell you, even though that is not relevant to what we're discussing.
No, it's fine.
But
I was very particular about choosing them today because I was like, how do I express like all of my personality?
it's Lord of the. We could talk about Lord of the Rings and like Lord of the Rings lore.
Yes.
I had recently tweeted, totally not mind blowing. I was like, Lord of the Rings is actually about PTSD, and people were like, yeah, this is a known thing, and I was like, I just discovered it. Okay.
But that's the cool thing about the internet and like even reading your articles about Kingdom Hearts, because like you discover that the things that you were thinking are things that other people were thinking. Because I remember when I was playing KH2 that I was like, oh my gosh, this is my soul.
Yeah.
Like the deep melancholy is represented here. And I thought I was the only one thinking that.
Oh, of course.
Then, come here later down the line, I'm like, oh my gosh, you wrote a whole article about it.
It's really interesting how just like brains do that to us, right? They convince us we're the only one with depression, the only one feeling anxious, the only one worried, the only one thinking about the consequences of our actions or silly things that we've done, and literally everybody else is there. I think there's a term for it. There's like a fancy pants psychology term for it where like everybody else is living their lives, and when you come to like understand that like everybody else is basically just trying to do what you're doing, which is like survive. I feel like there's a fancy term for that, but
I'm not sure, but the only thing I'm thinking about is like sort of confirmation bias. Like you kind of look for the information that confirms what you see, and like
okay, fair.
You only have what's available to you, and so if that's what's available or all you're looking for, then you're likely to think this is the thing, when without all the other information, then you can't make different decisions.
Yeah, we love having answers, and when we don't have answers, we like make up answers that make sense to us, to the closest thing. Yeah. But okay, so gaming. We're getting into gaming. We're getting into gaming and talking about like safety and creating safe spaces. And literally, this is Safe Point, so let's make sure that it is as safe as possible. And maybe we can even talk about how controversial this term has become, like safe space.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a lot. I'm asking about a lot at once.
Oh, we could cover all the topics, I think.
Great. Perfect. Okay. So you started researching gaming and stuff because you're a nerd. Clearly. I mean, clearly. So you started researching nerdy things and stuff like that. And then you decided to find the intersection between nerddom, gaming, and psychology, and then specifically the BIPOC experience. So that's where we're diving. That's where we're going in head first and getting all the answers. So that is my first question to you. Like, what made you go into the gaming space and be like, something else is needed here?
Yeah, I think it's really hard to talk about this without being personal in some way because I'm a gamer. I've been playing video games since I was like 6 years old, and I was introduced to console gaming, early. And I think it was the first time I discovered like, oh, there are all of these different cool ways of engaging and playing and being in the world. And for me, it was just a huge coping tool growing up, and a way of building community and connecting with family, connecting with friends. And as I sort of entered into the psychology space and doing my training, I discovered, oh, I'm really good at working with kids. And most of the kids that I'm also really good at working with are neurodivergent, like myself. And a lot of them play video games too. And there's all this conversation usually with parents around too much gaming time, how much is enough,
Yes.
you know, um, maybe too many screens, they're not interacting with friends at school, all of these concerns. And it's difficult because as a gamer, I'm always thinking about, oh, like there's a lot about video games that are so important to me. How can I think with parents and adults, because I see adults too who are big gamers, um, how can I think together with them about the meaning that this has for their lives and what purpose it's serving? And so that intersection is kind of what got me interested in thinking about, how do I understand mental health as a result of people's relationship with video games? And yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, 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 no. I was, yeah, we're going. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And I think I will answer your question, but I'm going to work my way backward a little bit
Go for it.
because I think this helps illustrate a point during the pandemic, which is still happening. But really, when things were more shut down here, what I noticed, and this is sort of true, I think, for a lot of people, that I had a harder time playing games that I normally would.
Huh.
So my energy for sort of my activation energy for sitting down in front of my MMO and getting on and doing the dailies and all that stuff, I just didn't have the same energy. And it was true for like even things like reading or listening to music, or I tried to get into the Among Us craze, and
No.
I played one night and I was good at it. Like my friends were like, "Oh, we should never play with a psychologist." And
I never thought of that. Ooh, I gotta get all my psychology friends to. Ooh, that would be a great game with all psychologists. Yes.
oh my gosh, it would be kind of probably a little scary.
Oh, terrifying! Absolutely terrifying. Especially if like I would be the only person that doesn't have a psych degree, just sitting there and being like, "Yeah, I can't lie to any of you. I just murdered you. I don't know what to tell you."
Well, the thing is I didn't even really know how to murder people well, but like I could trick
You
folks.
figure it out.
Yeah. But I played and I remember I was like my heart rate was up, my armpits were all sweaty,
Oh
and I was like,
yeah.
"Oh, this is not what I need right now."
No, that's exactly what it was. I was like, I get flushed, my face turns red and hot, and I'm just sitting there and going, "No, I didn't do it." And
Yeah.
I also self-report, like, I cannot. I will click on something and I feel like I'm still going, but I accidentally self-report, and then I have to sit there and just sweat through and explain how I did not just self-report. Anyway, okay, so Among Us did not do it for you, but like Animal Crossing?
I did play Animal Crossing.
Okay.
I played a lot of Animal Crossing, but I played like when it came out and all my friends were playing. So I was getting on Discord like every night being like, okay, who's watching Shooting Stars and so's island? Are you going to come water my flowers? I know I've gone on a tangent, but basically I found
We
out
love
that a lot of
tangents
my
here.
that makes sense. But a lot of my other friends, they realized that they were also having the same difficulty with like not really feeling up to playing certain games that we would usually play together and things like that. And I started thinking about, and I was hearing it too on different media platforms with folks talking about books and things like that. And I'm like, oh yeah, this is a marker of mental health, right? Video games are just as much about our ability to play and have joy in our lives as anything else. And it still takes energy, right? It may be something that we enjoy, but it still takes energy. And so folks really with the trauma of the pandemic and things that were happening were finding that they just couldn't play the same thing, or they needed something that was like a lower intensity. And I start there because I know that that's kind of more present in people's minds, but I think that's a really good example of the importance of your gaming life to your mental health and understanding what's going on with you. So that's kind of present day. If I walk it back a bit, the biggest thing for me was the connection, especially for my neurodivergent folks, with social anxiety. So that was a big one. And I've noticed during my time working with people that there are kind of two different things to look at. One is like, is your play style consistent with how you show up in the world? Or is it
Mm.
different
Mm-hmm.
from how you show up in the
Right.
world? And this is particularly resonant, I think, for folks who are on the margins in terms of the communities. And I say margins because they've been pushed there,
Right.
either oppressed, stripped of power, etc. But
Mm-hmm.
how they choose to engage can often say a lot about, how they think about their mental health and engage with the world. And so I'll use myself as an example,
Mm-hmm.
and then I'll sort of use a distant example. And I know I'm like talking,
I need you to
but
talk. Listen, we have only time. I need you to talk. So you're good. Do not feel so. I invited you so that you talk a lot, and
yes,
I
I
talk very
know.
little. And if you don't talk, I will talk more, and you don't want that. So
You're like, this is my break.
I'm going to go take a nap so you could explain.
Yeah. But no, I think for me, I show up in the world in one way, and
Mm-hmm.
I've gamed that way.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a stealth gamer.
Mm-hmm.
I always have been. Fallout 4 took way too long for me because I was busy creeping around, getting my VATs up, all of this stuff. And it took way too long. And it wasn't until I played Destiny 2 that I realized, oh, that doesn't work here. Like I couldn't, go on a raid and like be like creeping around like I needed to brawl and to fight.
Right.
But I I would say as a black person in a world that really isn't built for me, right, with me in mind, have moved around sort of stealthily in order to get where I am today, right?
Interesting.
My
Yeah.
Most of my higher education was predominantly white institutions. I was often the only black person or one of maybe two people, and you have to move strategically in order to survive in an environment like that. And it really, in my mind,
Mm-hmm.
became about playing the game.
Mm-hmm.
How do I play this game in order to get my degree, right? And really do the work that I want to do on my own terms, which is kind of
Mm-hmm.
what led to my business. There's the other part of this which is when your play style is different than how you show up in the world.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so when it comes to like social anxiety, for example,
Mm-hmm.
some people they may sort of be highly avoidant in the physical world. And I say physical world because I always try to move away from calling it like real world versus not.
Right. They're all real. They're all
Yeah, they're
real.
all real. Yeah. But in the physical world, we may show up one way. But in our game life, we may be the most sociable people, highly engaged. We're the one organizing things on the Discord. We're talking to all these people that we've never met and we probably will never meet. And I have conversations with people about, well, how is that maybe closer to something that you would want
Mm-hmm.
in the physical world, right? And
Hmm.
for some people, that's not important to them, and that's
Mm-hmm.
fine, right? I'm not forcing that on anybody. But I have found that it can be really valuable to talk with people about sort of that separation between what happens for them in their game life and the ways that they feel paralyzed, sort of interacting with people in the physical world. And the parameters are different, your control is different.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the biggest thing for BIPOC gamers, unless you decide to reveal more information about yourself or be more public facing like esports gamers,
Right, right, right.
you can kind of avoid ish. I'm going to say, not entirely,
Right.
but you can avoid a lot of discrimination that does happen when people kind of know more about your public facing self, right?
Right. Whereas
And
face
so
to
for
face, you don't have any kind of protection, really.
right.
But it's interesting. And sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
No, you're fine. No, you're right. I mean, those judgments happen pretty quickly,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like I was even anxious about, I'm like, oh, my public facing self is going to be here on Twitch. Like, what are people going to say about me, right? And I feel the same way about social media. Like as soon as I sort of exit from behind my safety net, and we're talking about safe point here, right? um, that exposes me. I'm more
Mm-hmm.
vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
And for folks who follow esports gaming, a lot of Black esports gamers have faced pretty significant racial comments and things like that. Even when they're doing well and they're winning, they have to deal with derogatory statements. And so the more public facing you become as a gamer, the less that safety goes down,
Mm-hmm.
especially for folks of color,
Mm-hmm.
or the less that safety goes down if you have pretty paralyzing social anxiety. And the other flip side of this too is you can kind of create, depending on the games that you're interested in, what you might want to look like. And, obviously the video game industry has a terrible history with race.
Yeah, yeah, there's a big issue with like having black hairstyles even in games like Animal Crossing. It took forever to get that in there. And
Yeah. Yeah, and the representation is poop.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, no, and then you have like amazing creator like Zimarara, who I think I'm pronouncing her name wrong. I hope so. And who literally brought darker skin tones into Sims, like they just didn't exist before. Like that's wild that you have to fight for representation. Like that is not something that I as a cisgender white person have ever had to think about. Like I turn on a game and my skin color is there.
It's usually the default.
It's usually the default. And my hair is there. And, I might complain that like it's in ponytails and I wanted it down and I wanted braids. And that is at the extent of it. But I am represented. And I don't have to think about that. And I hope more people recognize that small difference that it could make. Like just take a second, right? If you talk to marginalized folks and you're like, I don't get why this is a problem, just take a second and be like, what if you turned on a game and the first thing you saw was a darker skin tone and you had to go looking for yours and then it wasn't there? Like,
right.
How would you feel? How would that make you feel? Like you can still play the game, and I'm sure a lot of people will say, like, it's like, do boys read books with female protagonists? Like, yeah, absolutely. You could still play and you could still have the experience, but how much richer is that experience if you're able to like fully put yourself in the character's shoes the way that they were intended to? I'm sorry, that was like a side. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. I mean, that's great. You just got me thinking about how this also speaks to other things that may show up if the therapist is somebody who, excuse me, is somebody who understands video games, knows the right questions to ask, right? What is the representation that you choose to show up with? What's the reason for that? How much of that is due to availability, right? Availability of certain character representations, or how much of that is due to choice? Are folks of color potentially more likely, and we don't have this research, right? We do know that folks of color are actually the higher percentage of gamers. So
that is not a number I knew. That's okay.
And I can send you the article if you want.
Oh, we love research here. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So we represent at least 85% of gamers, right? So the stereotype that it's predominantly white kids is actually not
just baloney on a stick.
Yeah. And so we are the primary consumers. And what's that about, right? When you think about, poverty and the influence of parents, single parent homes, and kids needing to be occupied and having other outlets and things like, there's so much that goes into this that is related to our social world that other people aren't necessarily thinking about. Right?
I've never had to. It's all the more reason to like listen to this. And I interrupted you again.
No, you're fine.
I'm just really excited, really into it. I promise it's not like a.
But when we talked on the phone, this is exactly how our conversation went.
Right? Yeah, it was like so you said you're neurodiverse too. That's why. This is what every time I have another neurodivergent on, it's very much, and the chat can confirm, it's very much like finish each other's sandwiches. Yes.
Right.
That's what I wasn't going to say that, but now we're going to talk about sandwiches for 10 minutes. So we're here. We're here and it's working. But okay, so there is this huge, there's this huge difference in gamers and representation, and how does that affect how safe somebody feels when playing, especially, again, if I'm BIPOC, I'm not represented, and then I go, into a chat and they call me a slur because I sounded different or whatever it might, like, that all affects then just the gaming, I want to say culture, but I feel like there's a bigger word than culture.
Experience,
yeah.
I mean, that's why it's often helpful to ask, like, what kinds of games folks are choosing to play, right? Because this goes into other things that I ask about, which is sort of the engagement piece. So
Mm-hmm.
not just play style, but communication.
Mm-hmm.
Are you a solo gamer?
Mm-hmm.
And what are the reasons for that, right? For some people, it may be that they still prefer, even when they're playing games, to just not have to deal with other people,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, and there might be reasons for that that are related to all kinds of things that are going on for them, including for BIPOC gamers, right? It could be, well, I'd rather just not have to deal with the added variable of what if somebody hears my voice and then they assume,
Right. Or they're a terrible
racial,
person. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And they say something, and of course, we know for um, feminine presenting women, female gamers, right? And I say female in air quotes. Um, folks who
We're a different
identify as,
breed.
right.
Yeah. We're not
folks
the
who
same. Yeah.
right. Folks who identify as women, right? They face discrimination, right, when they're playing certain games, especially Call of Duty. That's a pretty, rampant one, at least the ones that's talked about a lot. But there's already so much with discrimination that happens once you're revealing things about
Mm-hmm.
yourself,
Mm-hmm.
or if people think they can hear things about you. And
Mm-hmm.
of course, we infer a lot of whether or not we want to think that we do,
Mm-hmm.
we infer a lot from tone, right?
Right. Right.
There's a lot of code switching that happens when you're going into different situations. Sometimes people are like, I don't even want to feel the pressure of having to do that. I just want to get on and play my game and
Yep.
do my thing and not have to worry about it. So, like, the short answer to your question is like, it can be really impactful, or, they have the experience of finding folks who just, they don't care because they don't have the information. They just want to play with you, and that's that. Right. And so there's this sort of oscillating experience of like, am I going to face a situation that potentially exposes me? Or am I going to be able to really sort of experience community with other people? And the risk reward
Mm-hmm.
analysis
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
is, well, having a community that isn't like the hostile one that's in the physical world is worth the shot that
Mm.
I might, worth the risk, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
is the better way of putting it.
Wow. Again, like just not stuff I have to think about. So I appreciate this conversation, just every ounce of it. But there is a discussion specifically. So when we talked, you talked about the fact that you got interested in social anxiety, and for all the reasons that you just mentioned, it's obviously very different for BIPOC, from discrimination to perception to acceptance to all of those things. And so you combined understanding social anxiety and gaming and the BIPOC experience, and you have an acronym for it, and I was just so excited about it. Okay, so let's talk.
I do have an acronym. I don't know if I'm going to share it. No, I'm just
Oh,
kidding.
you don't have to. No.
No, no,
You
no.
don't have to. There's a lot of people watching. If it's like not ready to come out, you don't have to say the acronym, but you can talk about the research.
It's not ready to be birthed yet.
Okay. All right, fam. Follow the doc, because check out her link tree and everything, because stuff's coming out, and I got a sneak peek to it, and I can't tell you. I'm bursting at the seams, but it's not my story to share. And when it is, like, you want to be following her socials, so let's go on that. Okay.
Yes.
Anyway, can you tell us?
It will be birthed.
Right.
And for folks who know, they know it kind of has a funny play on a term that is very well known in the Black community, but it kind of combines everything that I've been talking about. So sort of I haven't talked about this yet, but like, what is your choice for your gamer name, right?
Right.
So for some people, that is, something silly, whatever, they kind of made it up. For some people, they have a huge story about it, like
Right.
it's something that friends would refer to them as, or
Mm-hmm.
it's connected to some story. So I always ask people, how did you choose your gamer name? What variations of your gamer name do you have? What's that about? Really sort of understanding that story, because I have a particular story around my gamer name, and I almost commented in the chat, and then I was like, oh wait, I don't, I haven't decided who I Because then all y'all are gonna find me and be like, okay, let me see what video games Dr. Dyette is playing. And I was like, oh wait, let me backtrack. I got so excited about being on your Twitch.
You could listen, you could create another account, come in anonymous. No one would ever know. And that's one of the best parts. Like, it's one of the reasons there was a conversation at one point of like Facebook gaming, because I was on Mixer and I was like, people need anonymity to talk about mental health. So use your anonymity, use the access to it, and have all the fun you want, not just on my channel.
Yeah, it's weird because I'm like anonymous but not anonymous.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah. No, but so that's one. And then of course avatar, which I've talked about a lot, right? So what do you choose? How do you design your character? And so are you choosing games that have more of a fantasy component? Because you can even be sort of different races. Again, we can talk about how races are decided, what attributes are given to certain races. Are those attributes based on stereotypes that we're not typically thinking about? And I encourage people to look at this because you'll see there's a certain trend in the attributes that are assigned to certain races in video games. But do you choose to play games like that because you just can be more, be different people, choose all kinds of skin colors, like you can really design your experience? Or are you playing games where it's a little bit more limited and you sort of register in the back of your mind, there's a dissonance, right? Like, oh, what I want isn't really available, but I really want to play this game. And so I'm just going to stuff that down so I can play this game.
Yeah.
And then, of course, for the queer community, right? How is that also showing up with their gaming experience? And so that's kind of how you choose to show up in the game, if that's a choice that you have. And I mentioned engagement style, right? So like like, are you playing with a community? Are you a solo gamer? How involved are you? And then like sort of how you play the game, like, is that consistent with or different from how you're showing up in the world? And does that tell you important things about how you're relating to people or other things in your life?
And how does sorry.
Yeah, that's it in a nutshell.
I think it's so cool. So you're doing research around this to kind of understand better the correlation between people and the choices they make in the gaming world.
So that's the plan. So right now it's the model setup, and then it will be, okay, how can we kind of create research around figuring this out and how it relates to certain mental health experiences.
That's amazing. So kind of to dive into social anxiety a little bit more, especially because we are talking about the BIPOC experience, and we're talking about how there's just a lot of anxiety logging on, period, right? Like what I experience as a woman is like a quarter of a quarter of a quarter compared to somebody who comes in as and is non-white into the gaming space. So social anxiety, like having social anxiety in the real world versus in the AFK world, like somebody said AFK world, versus having it at the keyboard, versus being able to leave that kind of behind in order to play the game. Is there a way that all correlates?
That's a good question. I think, again, some of this is related to representation in the actual video game versus representation in who the player base is.
Okay.
So as I mentioned, the player base is more diverse than the actual video game in-game representations that are available. And so folks of color are actually more likely to encounter other folks of color first in the gaming space.
Makes sense.
Potentially because of that pool. And so that's why when I mentioned earlier kind of that risk reward analysis, not just because of the games themselves, but also who you might find changes, right? Because I know we know that during the course of the pandemic, I don't know if anybody else felt this way, but like a bunch of other people who normally wouldn't play video games suddenly got involved in video games,
Right,
and we
right,
were
right.
all like, "Oh my God, who are these people? They're claiming our space."
Yeah. Same thing happened just in the streaming space in general, where
Hmm.
Twitch swelled to 7 million broadcasters at one
Holy
point.
cow!
Yeah, and the typical number is like 4 million, which is already like mind blowing. 4 million in a month, and then it swelled up to 7 million people being like, I guess I'll try this because
I can.
I can, and holy moly, I would love to talk to somebody,
Yeah, no, I'm not excluding. I'm not trying to be exclusionary, but I was all up in my gamer feelings about it because
Sure.
I was like, hey, like, you know, this historically for me, the gaming space felt like a space where, as someone who is different in a lot of ways, there is quote unquote more safety for me, right? I can kind of curate that community. I can curate my gaming experience in ways that I cannot do
Yeah.
when I'm moving around AFK.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that. I can't see the comments, but I love that. And so I think if we're talking, correlation does not equal causation, and I don't
Right.
have like specific data, but if we're talking sort of correlatively, again, this goes back to what I was saying. What are the reasons why folks of color potentially still flock to video games despite the representation issues? And that might be very much related to what I was saying, sort of having more control over your experience and that environment and who you can interact with.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I feel like that is universal in some sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I feel like there's a comfort in games because of anonymity and because of a lot of things, because of all the things you just mentioned for everybody, but to be in a marginalized community and to finally feel a sense of safety that you just cannot find elsewhere that's a whole separate thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about what games are you interested in and why. Why we're gonna dig into, and then we're gonna go into questions. So fam, if you have questions, !join, and then ask your question. It'll go into a queue. You cannot ask more than 2 questions at a time, I want to say, and they cannot be like too long because the bot will not catch them. But please do, Dr. Dyette.
Yeah, like diet soda.
I almost had it. But yeah, Dr. Dyette has agreed to answer a few. So let's go. But okay, yeah. So now you get on the chair. So we're gonna talk about like what game. So what did you end up playing during the course of the beginning of the major aspect of the major during the pandemic? Where were you? Where were you during the pandemic?
I was existing in an existential space of crisis.
Aren't we all?
And we're still sort of in that fog.
Yeah.
And yeah. Well, so I will answer your question. I just realized that there was something I should say that I didn't say.
Oh no.
Which is, well, it's just sort of a clarification, because when I want to make sure, I know most folks here probably know this, but when we say social anxiety, we're not just talking about, I feel a little weird about being around people, right?
Because everybody's experiencing that now. Like that's
right. Yeah. But talking about sort of paralyzing, interfering with lots of aspects of your life. You are actively avoiding situations because you're worried about the worst possible thing happening, negative evaluations, maybe getting trapped somewhere, maybe something terrible happening. And so, some folk, I want to distinguish that because I think it's important. Like the example that I use, because some people, the physical symptoms are a huge deal for them.
Yeah.
Is like, I used to think that I still kind of think this, that people could see my heart beating, like when I'm speaking, like because I was so anxious about it. So yeah, disclosure on my part, I have like dealt with social anxiety like most of my life. So it's an experience I know pretty well. And so when I'm very careful to make sure that people understand that this can be really paralyzing. It can be really paralyzing. So I just put that over there.
No, that's a good thing. I'm happy that you said it. That's a good thing to put anywhere. Okay.
And I'll answer your question about games. So my list of pandemic games is longer than it would typically be because a lot of games have remained sort of unfinished. I
Okay.
sort of bounce back and forth between them depending on my energy if we're talking about. And as you can imagine, I'm a therapist. I'm seeing folks regularly.
Yeah, a
And
lot of
I have,
emotional energy there.
yeah, my job has not stopped. It only
Right.
got more intense. So
Right.
I've been pretty drained. But let's see, when we spoke, I was still playing Animal Crossing. I was playing Final Fantasy VII Remake. I think I told you I had started Nier Automata and didn't finish. And
Well, I mean, did you finish any of the endings, or you just don't
I'm
consider
like
it?
in the middle of the game.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Because there's like
I was pretty.
40,000 endings, and people are like, I
Yeah,
never finished the game, and I'm like, could you finish it at
yeah.
all? I don't
There are
know.
so many, and now I'm like the second one is out, and I'm like, oh, I'm so behind, which is gives me more anxiety because I'm falling behind on my games.
Oh no, I felt this. Literally was sitting with my partner the other day. Literally, we opened up Steam because I just started the new show, and we opened
Mhm.
up Steam and it was Steam Summer Sale, and I'm like buying all the stuff, and
Oh
then
my
we were both
gosh.
like, oh, Nier Automata prequel is out, and we both looked at each other, we're like, da but we don't look at all the other games we just bought for the. Oh, we can't buy this, but I want to know because it was such a good game.
Oh my gosh, I
Anyway,
had to actively close down that sale
yeah, just
because I was like, don't even touch it. Like, don't bother.
no, I had a full excuse because I don't have a really big game library. My partner does, but I don't really. And so I had to, like, I went in and the community had recommended, like, all these games for the new show. And I was
Mhm.
like, well, what am I making money for if not the same?
That's a great excuse.
But I mean, like, The Witcher was like
Oh my
$7.99. Come
gosh.
on.
I
Come
know, I
on. Come
know, I
on.
know. But then I'm like, when am I gonna play all the
Yeah, oh,
things?
yeah,
Like,
no, never.
yeah. So that was another one that I was like, oh my gosh, I don't have time, but this game is gorgeous. The music is
Right,
beautiful.
right.
What else did I play? Cyberpunk, of course.
Okay. How did
And
you like
then
that? How did you like that? There was a lot of issues like
the
representation wise in the game and stuff.
yeah, the
Yeah.
glitching, and I was pretty pissed.
Okay.
I'm not the only one
Right.
about, again, if we're talking about the ability to change your character's appearance
Mhm.
and the flexibility with that and like how integral you would think that is to sort of a cyberpunk world,
Mhm.
like the limitations that were there, I was just really frustrated with. So that, yeah, so I'll put that over there
Mhm.
because that really,
We got a big pile over there now. I'm just
right.
warning you. Things keep
Let's
going
just
in
keep
there.
putting it on the
Just keep
pile.
putting somebody recently on Twitter was talking about like ADHD piles around their house. Like they have ADHD and how they have piles of stuff that they did the job of collecting and putting into one space. But then there's little piles of different collections. And it sounds like
Oh
we're
yeah.
doing this verbally, which
No
I'm
one
so
can
into.
see
Yeah.
the rest of my office, but I'm like, there's a tiny little pile over there and a tiny little pile over there. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And so those are my piles of grievances. And of course, we mentioned the Switch. I was playing Animal Crossing, Hades, Gris.
Yes,
Uh,
that's what we talked about Gris and how
yes.
much you loved Gris.
Oh my gosh.
We played it on stream and cried together.
Oh, so beautiful, so beautiful. And I think it matched sort of the frequency at which I've been at.
Yep.
And just really beautiful. And I think what I loved about it was it kind of felt like a meditative experience
Yes. It was definitely,
because
yeah.
I felt like you really had to sort of let go of trying too hard in order to sort of get through
Mm.
certain parts of it. Like
Mhm.
I just had to breathe and be like, okay, like move, just move.
Just keep
And
going. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So that's been that's a long list.
That's a good
And
list. You said for somebody who said like I don't have time to play games, it sounds like I feel like I say that about books too, where I'm like, I don't have time to read books, but I've also read like these 4 books and I don't finish books either. But the Panini just did that to everybody, right? Like
yeah.
where once you were done dealing with life,
Hmm.
it was too exhausting to invest emotionally into anything else.
Yeah. Yeah. Even the things that we love.
Yeah. Yeah, because you're like, I can't give anymore. I can't give anymore.
I just need to stare at a wall.
Yeah. 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 No, I just wrote a piece about that. About like that sometimes you just need to freaking stare at a wall. That's just it'd be like that. Book 7. Okay, all right. So, are you still playing Animal Crossing, or are you one of the people that is like, I can't keep playing this game?
I'm still playing.
I'm impressed. Like every day?
But I'm not every day.
Not every day.
No. This is sort of like a check-in when I feel like it. It really feels difficult on my soul that my villagers get upset.
They get really upset.
I don't know if anybody played Neopets back in the day, but like I was one of the people who would feel so guilty if I left my pets like starving or anything like that. And I still sometimes wonder to this day, like, is my account like inactive? Because I don't want them to be like suffering. So yeah, I invest a lot of feelings into these little creatures and characters.
No, I feel that. I feel that. I was one of those people. I would put, I think until the age of like 13, every day I would dress my Barbie doll, and every night I would put her back into pajamas. So
that's awesome.
And put her to bed. Like, even if I didn't play with her, I just did those two things every day. So I feel this is the same kind of person for sure.
Yes,
for sure. I feel that. And they give you so much guilt, the villagers, where they're
do.
That's so awful. That's why I don't want to log in, or I don't talk to them. I'll like just like
yeah. I did play for a while when the Mario thing was coming on, and like I hoarded like a bunch of Mario stuff, and like I intend to do something with them, but I don't know when.
Sure.
And like there's like a big front portion of my island that's like not developed, because every time I look at it, I feel like
it's a really big project. It's a heckin' honker of a project.
Yeah. So, everyone in the chat is probably getting like markers of like, okay, so what's Dr. Dyette's like situation going on these days? She's not finishing video games. I'm like, yeah, the panorama really messed things up.
It did. It really did. But you finished Gris.
I did finish Gris.
It's not like you can't commit to anything. It's just Nier Automata is what? How many hours of gameplay? Like 40, 50?
Yeah.
If you do all the endings, probably infinity. So who has time for that?
I did recently start Final Fantasy Online.
Okay. And have you been like really hooked on that? Like daily?
I have.
Getting it? Yeah. Okay.
And I can't play every single day, but I have been playing with friends. So that's nice. And I've been meaning to start that for a long time, but I was like, do I want to pay a subscription? But I'm in. So yeah.
It's too late. Okay. All right. We're going to go into Q&A. We're going to go into Q&A time.
Awesome.
Let's see. Question number 1. What bit of trivia have you learned in the last week or so? Bliffle. Let's go random. We'll start all random, guys. What bit of trivia have you learned in the last week or so? I can't tell you that.
What do we count as trivia? Like anything that we didn't know?
Yeah, I guess like what's something you learned this week?
Well, depending on what we count as this week. I learned on Saturday what Turkish get-up squats are, or Turkish get-ups are what they call them. And I had to do them. And I can't describe it to you. But it involves a dumbbell.
Okay.
And a very complicated motion to get off the floor. And I didn't realize that this was a thing. So all of you guys are probably Googling right now. I don't know if that counts as trivia, but I didn't know this was an exercise move.
That's amazing. You know what? Actually, you're making me think of stuff. So I'm Russian. And the other day, I wore the same color, like I wore a tracksuit, basically. It was the same color yoga pants as it was a sweatshirt. And my husband's like, you got to do the Slavic squat now. And then he told me that I did it wrong. Me, the Russian, he told me I did it wrong. So
criminal.
It is. But you just made me think of that. So there you go. Kateyama, please hit exclamation join and then add your questions so it can go into the queue so we can answer them accordingly. I was trying to make a pun, but it's not happening. Okay, so Carthabruja, since you can't give us your new acronym, can you share the brainstormed versions you didn't go with?
Oh.
Are there such?
No, I don't think so. I mean, the brainstorm versions were just sort of like plays on letters, and so this person is good. That's a good question. I can see it. I can see it. But I think I maybe like cycled through like 2 different letters for something, and then I was like, this is it. This is really funny.
Yeah.
It's funny to me, but I don't know if it'll be funny to everybody else. But
I
that's what
like
I
it.
landed with.
I like it. It doesn't culturally relate to me, so I
Right.
don't know, but I thought it was a cool idea. So far,
And maybe
fam,
somebody will look at it and be like, I don't know, but we'll see.
fam, I need y'all to ask on point questions. So far, these questions, they're kind of making the community look like we're more interested in random stuff. Nanosphere. If you want to answer, did you ever mask your ethno features when gaming with others?
That's a good question. Not really. I typically, if I had available to me, darker skin tones. But I usually, if available, I would play with elf characters.
Okay.
Or
yeah.
In the case of Final Fantasy, with online, I chose the Vera. But I would usually choose darker skin tones.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we could talk about like again that consistency piece, but yeah.
Katie Yama asks, "What is your favorite childhood game?"
Oh, hey, Katie. I know her. My favorite childhood game was Crash Bandicoot.
Oh, okay.
In close proximity with Dynasty Warriors. I know people have feelings about hack and slash, but that game was hours of my childhood, lots of campaigns. So those 2 were like my top. I know I cheated, but yeah.
Wait, why are you cheating? Because you said 2? We want all of them. I want to know all of them. We got you, Katie Yama. Don't worry. We got you. Okay, last question is from Martizzle. Do you have resources as far as the type of questions you ask about the who, what, where, when, why, how people game and choose characters, etc.? I game with my patients, and I would love more great talking points to connect and understand them better.
The short answer is they are coming. So I can definitely put together some things.
Spamming your link.
Yeah, so please subscribe. I know I'm promoting. Subscribe to my newsletter on my website. I am developing more with sort of the gaming aspect of my practice, and I'll be putting out some more information about that soon.
If you, and I don't ask this to like everybody, but like if you could wave a magic wand and like fix an issue in the gaming sphere, do you think you would? And if you would, which one would it be?
Oh, that's a question.
Ooh.
If I could fix an issue.
Take your time.
If we're I think I could think of a lot of things, but if we're sticking with the topic that we had today.
Sure.
I would fix the representation piece. Not only we're not talking surface level like in the game, but sort of in the creators.
So, within the gaming space, whatever that means to you.
Yeah, because again, we mentioned sort of most of the demographics of actual gamers versus the demographics of the creators are completely disparate, right? Most creators are white. You don't have representation in the gaming room when it comes to ability, socioeconomic status, et cetera, like if we fill in the blank, right, of all the folks who have been disempowered and pushed to the margins, they're not necessarily represented in the creators room. And so that is something that I would change.
Beautiful. Do you know Cypher of Tier of I Need Diverse Games? Okay, I just wanted to make, I was like, because if you don't know each other, I will make that happen.
Oh, well, not personally. I know who they are.
Oh.
So yes.
Can I? I'm gonna try to make an introduction then. That would be great. Because I feel like you're so, like, I interviewed Cypher last time
Yes.
3 years ago now, probably. And yeah, so much of this is resonating with things that she talked about, and I feel like would be great to connect on.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Yeah, we're gonna remind me, because ADHD brain, it might not make it all the way out. But this is so lovely. You're so lovely. Okay, this is your opportunity to promote the living bejesus out of yourself. Like, just run and promote this. I need you to promote as much, like, just like I needed you to talk, I need you to promote everything about yourself that you could possibly think of.
Okay, well, like I said, for those who may have tuned in late, my name is Dr. Dyette. I am a practice owner of my own practice, Cup of Tea Counseling LLC. So if you saw the tweet for this that said, come have a cup of tea with us. And I don't know if you were thinking of my practice name when you put that there, but that's...
I
Were
did.
you?
No, I did. That was on purpose. Yeah.
Okay.
It was like a punt, like have a cup of tea, because we might spill some tea, but we didn't really spill. I don't think we spilled any particular tea, but it was because. Anyway, yep. No, I have the branding was on my mind. Yes.
We spilled some tea about me, just all the games that I haven't finished.
There you go.
I embarrassingly admitted that to everybody. But yes, my practice is Cup of Tea Counseling LLC. You can find me on Instagram at CT Counseling with 2 L's. And the link tree is, I don't know where, but
it's in chat. It's in chat, fam. They have
there.
It.
Facebook is there. I don't have a Twitter. I'm sorry. I know everyone's
That's okay.
on Twitter.
That's okay. I mean, it's for your health,
It is.
It's okay.
It
really is.
Yeah, my Instagram is there. You can always inbox me, although if it's anything related to mental health, please go to my website. I have my form there. It helps me manage things pretty securely and make sure that I'm keeping you all safe. And I put resources on my website too. So I have a newsletter there. There's also free resources. So if you've been having difficulty connecting with mental health providers, or you need self-guided things, that always goes up on my website. So you can find me there. There is a number for me that you can call. I don't get to phone calls like that often. So I much prefer email and Instagram for my communication. As we talked about, I am a gamer. I'm a clinical psychologist. I work with folks across the lifespan, and I also will be, I'm expanding my practice. So hiring and training therapists also in the models that I use so that they can incorporate it into the services that we offer here. And I do consultation as well around these issues, equity, social justice, inclusion. So if anyone needs support around that for their businesses or for their companies, or just individually, that's a service that I offer and that I can help provide for folks.
Awesome. Badass. I absolutely love you. I mean, it was a love at first chat through the phone. So this did not go anywhere. I'm so grateful to have been able to hang out and pick your brain, and just thank you. Thank you for everything. Thank you for your time. If you ever have anything that you want to come back and talk about, you just knock on my door and I will give you a date. I love you so much. I'm so grateful. This was a wonderful conversation. Thank you for all the things that you disclosed. Thank you for all the things that you shared, and thank you for all the cliffhangers that you left, because that'll keep people coming back. It's good. Yes. It's all good. It's all good for business. But thank you so much for being here, fam. We are going to be right back after this, after some, what are we gonna do? Some magic tricks. Anyway, love y'all. See you soon. Thank you so much.